the national song and national anthem, followed by Ahom Hongit.
Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Sujala Sufala, Malayaj Shitala, Sasya Shyamala Mataram, Vande Mataram, Shubhrajyotsna Pulakitayamini, Pullakusumita Drumadala Shobhini, Suhasini Sumadhura Bhashini, Sukhadam Varadam Mataram, Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram.
Please be seated. Param Shraddhar Hudibhind, Hador সম্ভাষণ গ্ৰহণ কৰিব। বিশিষ্ট শিক্ষাবিদ, সাংবাদিক, চিন্তাশীল লেখক, সমাজকৰ্মী তথা মানৱ অধিকাৰৰ অগ্ৰণী প্ৰবক্তা অধ্যাপক শৰৎ মহন্তৰ উপজা দিনৰ সৈতে সংগতি ৰাখি অধ্যাপক শৰৎ মহন্ত ফাউণ্ডেশ্যন আৰু ৰয়েল গ্লোবেল ইউনিভাৰ্চিটিৰ উদ্যোগত এগৰাকী বিৰাল ব্যক্তিত্বৰ সোঁৱৰণত আয়োজন কৰা এই বক্তৃতানুষ্ঠানলৈ আপোনালোক সকলোকে উদ্যোক্তাসকলৰ তৰফৰ পৰা আন্তৰিক আদৰণি জনাইছোঁ। On behalf of Professor Sarat Mahanta Foundation and Royal Global University, it is our honor and a privilege to welcome all distinguished guests and dignitaries to the Professor Sarat Mahanta Memorial Lecture 2026. অধ্যাপক শৰৎ মহন্ত অসমৰ বৌদ্ধিক শৈক্ষিক জগতখনৰ এক পৰিচিত নাম। নিজকে ইতিহাসৰ ছাত্ৰ হিচাপে চিনাকি দি ভাল পোৱা অধ্যাপক শৰৎ মহন্তই জন্মগ্ৰহণ কৰিছিল শিৱসাগৰ জিলাৰ নাজিৰাৰ ঐতিহ্যমণ্ডিত শ্ৰী শ্ৰী চলিহা বাৰেঘৰ সত্ৰৰ এটি সংস্কৃতিবান পৰিয়ালত। নাজিৰা উচ্চতৰ মাধ্যমিক বিদ্যালয়ত স্কুলীয়া শিক্ষা সাংকৰি শিৱসাগৰ কলেজৰ পৰা স্নাতক ডিগ্ৰী লাভ কৰা মহন্তই গুৱাহাটী বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ৰ ইতিহাস বিষয়ত স্নাতকোত্তৰ ডিগ্ৰী গ্ৰহণ কৰে। শৈশৱতে পিতৃক হেৰুৱাই সন্মুখীন হোৱা জীৱনৰ সংঘাত সংগ্ৰামৰ সকলোবোৰ প্ৰত্যাহ্বান হেলাৰঙে নেওচি কৰ্মজীৱন আৰম্ভ কৰা মহন্তই 1964 চনৰ 21 ছেপ্টেম্বৰত উচ্চ শিক্ষাৰ আগশাৰী শিক্ষানুষ্ঠান শিৱসাগৰ কলেজৰ বুৰঞ্জী বিভাগৰ অধ্যাপক হিচাপে যোগদান কৰে আৰু প্ৰায় 33 বছৰৰো অধিক কাল এই কলেজত অধ্যাপনা কৰি 1997 চনৰ 30 এপ্ৰিলত অৱসৰ গ্ৰহণ কৰে। সুদীৰ্ঘ সময়ৰ বাবে দ্য আছাম ট্ৰিবিউন কাকতৰ সাংবাদিক ৰূপেও সেৱা আগবঢ়োৱা মহন্তই 2003 চনৰ 30 জুনৰ পৰা 2007 চনৰ 30 এপ্ৰিললৈকে অসম মানৱ সেৱা আয়োগৰ এজন সন্মানীয় সদস্যৰূপে সফলতাৰে কাৰ্যনিৰ্বাহ কৰিছিল। তেওঁ ৰচনা কৰা গ্ৰন্থসমূহৰ ভিতৰত কনচাইজ হিষ্ট্ৰী অফ আছাম, পলকতে ইটো সিটো, অকণিৰ আকবৰ আৰু বীৰবল আৰু নীল নদীৰ সাধু আদি উল্লেখনীয়। The Professor Sarat Mahanta Foundation is rooted in a simple but enduring idea that we are not only creating a legacy to remember, but a set of values to continually work towards. Professor Mahanta's faith in education was expansive. It was not confined to institutions and classrooms, but was grounded in the belief that learning shapes how we think, question, and engage with the world around us. For him, education was inseparable from the practice of reason. It called for curiosity, for critical engagement, and for the courage to deliberate. His way of engaging with history as fluid, as lived, and as an interplay between the past and the present reflected this sensibility. This memorial lecture series, therefore, is not only a tribute, but an invitation to think deliberately, to listen carefully, and to hold space for diverse ways of seeing and knowing. It is an effort to build a forum where ideas can be tested, conversations can unfold, and intellectual engagement remains open, rigorous, and inclusive. And we are grateful to each and every one of you for being part of this journey and standing by us. This evening, we are truly honored and delighted that we have the august presence of the Honorable Governor of Assam, Sri Lakshman Prasad Acharya Mahoday, who will deliver the inaugural address. The memorial lecture will be delivered by Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar, founding Vice Chancellor OP Jindal Global University, on the theme, India at 100, Shaping a Future Through Education, Justice and Technology. We also have the presence of Honorable Mr. Justice Michael D. Wilson, former Judge, Supreme Court of Hawaii, who will deliver the special remarks. Etia, egosi mangolik bonti projalonere, আজিৰ অনুষ্ঠানটো আনুষ্ঠানিকভাৱে শুভাৰম্ভ কৰিবলৈ আগবাঢ়িছো। We will mark the auspicious beginning of this evening with the lighting of the ceremonial lamp. May I request the Honorable Governor of Assam, Sri Lakshman Prasad Acharya Mahoday, our honored guests for this evening, Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar, Honorable Mr. Justice Michael D. Wilson, Honorable Judge of Guwahati High Court, Mr. Justice Soumitra Saikia, Advocate General of Assam, Shri Debojit Saikia, Chief Secretary of Assam, Dr. Ravi Kota, the Director General of Police Assam, Shri Harmeet Singh, Chancellor Royal Global University, Shri A.K. Pansari, and Professor Sarat Mahanta's wife and fellow traveler in his journey, Mrs. Meena Mahanta, to kindly come forward to light the ceremonial lamp. Thank you to all our dignitaries, requesting you to kindly take your seats. এতিয়া এটি শিৱ বন্দনাৰে অনুষ্ঠানটি আগবঢ়াই লৈ যাব জনপ্ৰিয় সংগীত শিল্পী জুবলি বৰুৱাই।
Namaskar. Would like to offer my warm regards to the Honorable Governor of Assam, Shri Lakshman Prasad Acharya sir, Honorable Mr. Justice Michael D. Wilson sir, and Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar sir, and all the esteemed guests. With the blessings of my most respected uncle, Professor Sarat Mahanta, and my beloved brother, Zubin Garg, would like to sing one of my compositions, which has been beautifully written. It is a beautiful lyrical portrayal of Lord Shiva by the host of the evening, my beloved elder brother, Dr. Sarat Mahanta. And the song has been titled Om Maheshwara.
নীলকণ্ঠ সদাশিৱ জটাধাৰী মহাদেৱ পৰম সত্য তুমি তোমাৰ ধ্যান প্ৰদীপ্ত মোৰ তমোৰ অন্তৰ আত্মা চেতন তোমাক কোটি কোটি নমন প্ৰভু সদাশিৱ Maheshwara, Naman Maheshwara, Om Maheshwara, Naman Maheshwara, Om Maheshwara, Naman Maheshwara. সৃষ্টি তোমার ইচ্ছাত ধ্বংস তোমার ইচ্ছাত কাল চক্র ভূত অভূত সকলো প্ৰপঞ্চ তুমি সত্য ওম নমঃ শিৱায় ওম নমঃ শিৱায় ওম নমঃ শিৱায়
Thank you so much, Jubilee, for that beautiful rendition and such a soulful beginning for today's evening. We are immensely grateful to have with us today the Honorable Governor of Assam, Srijut Lakshman Prasad Acharya Mohoday. हम असम के माननीय राज्यपाल महोदय का हार्दिक स्वागत और अभिनंदन करते हैं. Honorable Governor Srijut Lakshman Prasad Acharya Mohoday is a distinguished statesman, devoted educationist and a tireless social worker. आपने जन सेवा, शिक्षा और सामाजिक सशक्तिकरण के क्षेत्र में उल्लेखनीय योगदान दिया है. His visionary leadership, his simplicity and dedication are a source of inspiration to us all. माननीय असम के राज्यपाल श्री लक्ष्मण प्रसाद आचार्य महोदय अपनी गहन आध्यात्मिकता, बुद्धिमत्ता और संतुलित दृष्टिकोण के लिए व्यापक रूप से प्रशंसित है. असम की संस्कृति और परंपराओं के प्रति हृदय से उनकी सच्ची रुचि राज्य के समृद्ध विरासत के प्रति उनके गहरे सम्मान को दर्शाती है. एक महान प्रेरक और मार्गदर्शक के रूप में वे दूरदृष्टि और प्रतिबद्धता के साथ सामाजिक सांस्कृतिक प्रयासों को निरंतर प्रेरित और समर्थन प्रदान करते हैं. अब मैं सादर अनुरोध करती हूं कि माननीय राज्यपाल महोदय मंच पर पधारें ताकि हम उन्हें सम्मानित कर सकें. Thank you. May I now request the Honorable Governor to deliver the inaugural address.
गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः. सभी को नमस्कार. प्रोफेसर शरत महंत जी के स्मृति में आयोजित इस महत्वपूर्ण कार्यक्रम में उपस्थित माताजी श्रीमती मीना महंत जी, असम सरकार के मुख्य सचिव डॉक्टर रवि कोटा जी, असम के पुलिस महानिदेशक श्री हरमीत सिंह जी, सुप्रीम कोर्ट हवाई के पूर्व माननीय न्यायाधीश न्यायमूर्ति माइकल डी विल्सन जी, ओपी जिंदल ग्लोबल यूनिवर्सिटी के कुलपति डॉक्टर सी राजकुमार जी, असम रॉयल ग्लोबल यूनिवर्सिटी के कुलपति डॉक्टर ए.के. पंसारी जी, और जिनके स्नेह से मुझे आप सबके साथ आज मिलने का सौभाग्य प्राप्त हो रहा है, ऐसे पुलिस आयुक्त गुवाहाटी श्री पार्थ सारथी महंता जी, उपस्थित अन्य सम्मानित अतिथिगण, मीडिया के मित्रों, युवा साथियों, देवी और सज्जनों, आज 1 मई है. आज का दिन हम सभी के लिए अत्यंत महत्वपूर्ण और ऐतिहासिक है. आज विश्व भर में श्रमिक दिवस मनाया जा रहा है. इस मौके पर मैं अपने राज्य के सभी श्रमिक बंधुओं को हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं देता हूं. असम की विकास यात्रा के सहभागी हमारे श्रमिकों के परिश्रम, संकल्प एवं समर्पण का मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं. आजिर यही दिन टोतई आमी ए गोराकी महान मानवतावादी विशिष्ट शिक्षाविद आरु होमाज होसेतोन व्यक्तित्व स्वर्गीय अध्यापक हरत महंत देवक गभीर श्रद्धारे स्मरण करिसु। रॉयल ग्लोबल यूनिवर्सिटी आरु अध्यापक हरत महंत फाउंडेशन जुटिया उद्योगत अनुष्ठित এই স্মারক বক্তৃতানুষ্ঠানত আপোনালোকক आंतरिक अभिनंदन आरु आदरणी जनाइसु। मित्रों, कुछ व्यक्तित्व समय के सीमाओं से परे होते हैं। वे केवल अपने जीवन काल तक सीमित नहीं रहते, बल्कि अपने विचारों, अपने संस्कारों और अपने कर्मों के माध्यम से पीढ़ियों तक जीवित रहते हैं। प्रोफेसर सरत महंत जी ऐसे ही एक ऐसे प्रकाशपुंज, उनका जीवन एक दीपक के समान था जो स्वयं जलकर दूसरे के जीवन को आलोकित करता रहा। অসমৰ ঐতিহ্যমণ্ডিত শিৱসাগৰ মহাবিদ্যালয়ৰ বুৰঞ্জী বিভাগৰ অধ্যাপক হিচাপে 33 বছৰতকৈ অধিক কাল সেৱা আগবঢ়াই তেওঁ অগণন ছাত্ৰক ছাত্ৰী জ্ঞানৰ পোহৰ বিলাইছিল। অসম মানৱ অধিকাৰ আয়োগৰ সদস্য হিচাপে তেওঁ সমাজৰ দুৰ্বল, বঞ্চিত আৰু নিপীড়িত লোকসকলৰ অধিকাৰ সুৰক্ষিত কৰাৰ বাবে যি নিৰ্ভীক पदक्षेप लोइसिल हेया आजिल अतुलनीय। मित्रों, हमारा असम संतों एवं महापुरुषों की पावन धारा है। महापुरुष श्रीमंत शंकर देव एवं श्री श्री माधव देव जैसे महापुरुषों ने समाज को जो संस्कार दिए, वही असम की थाती है, मजबूत आधार है। महापुरुष श्रीमंत शंकर देव की ही देन है जो हमारे असम की शैक्षिक, सांस्कृतिक और आध्यात्मिक दृष्टि से देश भर में एक विशिष्ट पहचान है। चाहे रूप कुंवर ज्योति प्रसाद अग्रवाला हों, कला गुरु विष्णु प्रसाद राभा हों, साहित्य रति लक्ष्मीनाथ बेदबुआ हों, सुधाकंठ डॉक्टर भूपेन हजारिका जी हों, सभी विभूतियों में महापुरुष की शिक्षा और संस्कार विद्यमान है। असम की इस विरासत को आगे बढ़ाने में प्रोफेसर शरत महंत जैसे महानुभावों का विशेष और महत्वपूर्ण योगदान रहा है। हमारा असम अपने प्राकृतिक संपदा, सांस्कृतिक धरोहर और युवा शक्ति के साथ आत्मनिर्भर असम के निर्माण में महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका निभा रहा है। यहाँ के हस्तशिल्प, कृषि उत्पाद और सांस्कृतिक परंपराएं विश्व स्तर पर पहचान बना रही हैं। बंधुओं, विकसित भारत का संकल्प हम सबकी सामूहिक जिम्मेवारी है। जब एक किसान अपनी फसल को बेहतर बनाता है, तब एक शिक्षक अपने विद्यार्थियों को प्रेरित करता है। जब एक युवा स्टार्टअप शुरू करता है, तब राष्ट्र और राज्य को आगे बढ़ाते हैं। छोटे छोटे प्रयास मिलकर बड़े परिवर्तन लाते हैं। यही जनभागीदारी की शक्ति है। मुझे खुशी है कि आज हमारी बेटियां हर क्षेत्र में आगे बढ़ रही हैं। विज्ञान, शिक्षा, खेल, प्रशासन, हर जगह वे नए कीर्तिमान स्थापित कर रही हैं। मेरे प्रिय युवा मित्रों, आज का युग तकनीक युग है। डिजिटल क्रांति ने हमारे जीवन को बदल दिया है। स्टार्टअप्स, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, डिजिटल प्लेटफॉर्म, ये सभी भविष्य के निर्माण के उपकरण हैं। आप इन नवाचारों को अपनाएं, नए विचारों को जन्म दें, भारत को एक वैश्विक टेक्नोलॉजी बनाने में अपना योगदान दें। मुझे पूर्ण विश्वास है कि मेरे असम के युवा अपनी प्रतिभा और रचनात्मकता के माध्यम से इस तकनीकी क्रांति में अपनी अग्रणी भूमिका निभा सकते हैं। बंधुओं, यदि आज हम एक छोटा सा सकारात्मक कदम उठाते हैं, तो ही आगे चल करके बड़े परिवर्तन का आधार बनता है। आगे आने वाली पीढ़ियां जब आज़ादी के शताब्दी वर्ष पर भारत की उपलब्धियों को देखेंगे, तो उसमें हमारे प्रयासों की एक सार्थक झलक दिखाई पड़ेगी। जीवन हमें निरंतर अवसर देता है, कुछ नया सीखने का, कुछ बेहतर करने का और समाज में सकारात्मक परिवर्तन लाने का। आज जब हम प्रोफेसर शरत महंत जी के जीवन और उनके आदर्शों को स्मरण कर रहे हैं, तो यह अतीत का स्मरण भर नहीं, बल्कि भविष्य के लिए एक स्पष्ट मार्गदर्शन है। सच्ची श्रद्धांजलि शब्दों से नहीं, कर्मों से दी जाती है। यदि हम उनके विचारों को अपने जीवन में उतारें, ज्ञान, सेवा और मानवीय मूल्यों को अपनी प्राथमिकता बनाएं, तो यही उनके प्रति हमारी वास्तविक श्रद्धांजलि होगी। बंधुসকল, যিমান দিনলৈকে আমাৰ মাজত সততা আৰু মানৱতা থাকিব, সিমান দিনলৈকে অধ্যাপক হৰত মহন্ত দেৱ আমাৰ মাজত জীয়াই থাকিব। পুনৰবাৰ স্বৰ্গীয় মহন্ত দেৱলৈ আন্তৰিক শ্ৰদ্ধা নিবেদন কৰি মুই মোর টু আখার ইমানুতে হামারসো। ধন্যবাদ। জয় অসম, জয় হিন্দ।
মাননীয় ৰাজ্যপাল মহোদয় শ্ৰীযুত लक्ष्मण प्रसाद आचार्यक अशेष धन्यवाद। माननीय राज्यपाल महोदय, आपके शब्दों ने हमें प्रेरित किया और इस आयोजन को और भी महत्वपूर्ण कर दिया। आपका बहुत बहुत आभार। Now I would like to invite Honorable Mr. Justice Michael D. Wilson, former Judge, Supreme Court of Hawaii, to deliver the special remarks. May I also request the organizers to kindly felicitate the Honorable Justice.
Aloha. Aloha is a word we use in Hawaii, where I am from, that means namaste. And it recognizes the beauty of the human spirit. It's a word in our Hawaiian language. I am very privileged to be here, and I would just especially like to thank the Honorable Governor. It was such a privilege, and you were so kind to spend time with myself and Professor Kumar this morning in your magnificent house. And I want to also honor my brethren, the Honorable Justice that's here today. But in particular, it is a privilege to be here recognizing a great professor from India and from Assam. And I would say that Professor Mahanta takes on a special meaning for me because Sarat Mahanta is a very significant dean at the school where I now teach after being on the Supreme Court of Hawaii for a long time, maybe 10 years. And I've always sort of looked up to Upasana. Now that I'm here, I realize that she's really famous because she is the daughter of Professor Mahanta. And then to meet her wonderful brother as well, Dr. Partha Mahanta, it has been an experience that from a person coming from Hawaii is very powerful. And I have to confess, I have to tell you that on my mind right now, I'm still thinking about the lunch that I had at the Mahanta family's house. It was such a spectacular lunch, and the dessert was unbelievable. I wish I could remember the name of it, but I sort of feel like I want to stay here for a while and eat dessert. It is really wonderful to be here, and I'll just conclude my remarks with a bit of a story about Hawaii and India. You know, we are pretty small. To me, this is very exciting to have so many people in a room like this. We have 1.4 million people in Hawaii, and we are on a place, we are on an island that's magic. It's so beautiful, and it's the most remote landmass on Earth. But as I say, we have 1.4 million people. You have 1.4 million lawyers. You're so big and you are so important. And we were lucky because we on the Supreme Court of Hawaii got to know your justices of your Supreme Court, which is really a great court in the world. And your justices were kind enough to come to Hawaii and help us develop an environmental court, but more importantly, to feel like there is a relationship between our jurisprudence or our way of looking at the law and the way that India does. In other words, when you hear a justice of the Supreme Court of India, they'll often say they have a duty to, of course, protect the rights of people, but also other living things, the connection to nature, the connection to a part of the world that isn't just human is natural in India. And it is in Hawaii too. Not so much in maybe some other parts of the United States. So the presence of these giants, we think of them as so important, justices from a country with 1.4 billion people, a presence in Hawaii has really made a difference to us. And the Vice Chancellor, Raj Kumar, not only helped make arrangements for that kind of collaboration to take place, but also for students from our law school here, the Jindal Law School, to become clerks with our Supreme Court. So we have a strong attachment. Finally, I would be honored to pick any of you up at the airport in Hawaii. I've invited the Honorable Governor already, and I hope maybe you could come to Hawaii, but to have visitors from Hawaii is really to have visitors from India is very special to us. And I have a beach house. So I would love for you to come visit me in my beach house so you can see just how magnificent Hawaii is. So aloha and namaste. It is a great honor to be here in Assam. I hope you don't mind if I come back, because I really want to have some more of that dessert and be with the Mahanta family. Aloha.
Thank you, Honorable Mr. Justice Michael D. Wilson, for your truly kind, generous, and gracious special remarks. I will draw up a list of people who would sign up after this to go to Hawaii and to your beach house, and will share with you shortly. Now we are at the most awaited moment of this evening. Before I request Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar to deliver the memorial lecture, I would like to make an attempt to briefly introduce him. Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar is a visionary educationist whose life reflects the transformative power of knowledge, perseverance, and global engagement. As the founding Vice Chancellor of O.P. Jindal Global University, he has redefined higher education in India by building an institution rooted in academic excellence, international collaboration, and public service. A distinguished Rhodes Scholar, his intellectual journey spans some of the world's most respected institutions, including Loyola College, Chennai, University of Madras, University of Delhi, University of Oxford, Harvard University, and University of Hong Kong. He has obtained degrees from all these institutions. This global education shaped his belief that ideas know no boundaries and that learning must serve humanity. Professor Kumar's scholarly contributions are vast, with over 200 publications, including influential books and articles in leading journals in India and around the world. His voice has reached thousands through more than 15,000 talks and lectures delivered across India and around the world, inspiring students, policymakers, and thinkers alike. A rare Indian Vice Chancellor invited to speak at the World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos, he represents India's intellectual leadership on the global stage. His life stands as a testament to the idea that education, when guided by purpose and integrity, can shape institutions, influence nations, and inspire generations to dream beyond boundaries. We are truly grateful, Professor Raj, for so graciously accepting our invitation and for being here with us today. May I now invite Professor Raj to the stage, and I would also like to invite the organizers to felicitate him with a token of our deep appreciation. we would want to take a moment here to request Professor Dr. Rajkumar to inaugurate an anthology of poems entitled Sambhavami Yuge Yuge by Dr. Sarat Mahanta. Thank you, Professor Raj. May I now invite you to deliver the 11th Professor Sarat Mahanta Memorial Lecture.
Moi asi etia gorob aru gahiro homanor bikoi hisabe Professor Sarat Mahanta Memorial Lecture to Pradhan Karibo Parisu Junto Professor Sarat Mahanta Foundation Dwara Ayojito Royal Global University Guwahati Akomer Rajyapal Mohode Shri Lokomon Prokod Asarya Dangor Upasit और Homanito Otiti Hikok Borundu Arupriya Bondu Bandabi Bilakor Masot. Ami asi matro ek academic onustanor babe ikate hoa nohoi kintu ek smritomoi muhorto babe ek hujog Professor Sarat Mahantar Jibon Babono Arustai Obanano Hudanjali Jonabo Babe Chaluk Esil Eson Bidawon Mano Botabadi Aru Protestan Gurua Bayokti Jar Probab Ajihu Notun Projonmuk Prarona Dia Koriasi. That was my attempt to speak a bit of Assamese. I just wanted to extend a warm welcome to all of you, especially our distinguished governor of the state of Assam. Thank you so much, sir, for allowing us to meet you and spend those precious moments with you. This memorial lecture is more than a ceremonial homage. It is a living testament to a life defined by intellectual rigor, moral clarity, and an unwavering commitment to truth and public good. Professor Mahanta's legacy reminds us that education is not merely about knowledge, but about character, conscience, and courage. It is equally important to recognize the quiet strength and grace of his life partner, Mrs. Meena Mahanta, whose presence and support formed an integral part of this remarkable journey, and whose own contribution to society reflect a life of dignity and cultural engagement. It is especially meaningful to acknowledge my dear colleague and friend, Dr. Upasana Mahanta, his daughter, a distinguished academic and a valued colleague whose work carries forward the same commitment to scholarship, integrity, and nation building. In her, we see both continuity and renewal. This extraordinary family legacy is further enriched by her brother, Dr. Sarat Mahanta, a multifaceted personality studying the worlds of policing, performing arts, culture, and nation building with rare distinction. I also want to acknowledge the distinguished contribution of Dr. Upasana Mahanta's another brother, Dr. Sarat Mahanta, who is himself a distinguished academic, and congratulations for the book that we released just today. Together, they embody a legacy rooted in truth, integrity, scholarship, and service. Today, as we honor Professor Sarat Mahanta, we celebrate not only a towering intellectual life, but a family whose values continue to illuminate and inspire. I cannot do better than the great Assamese poet, Dr. Bhupen Hazarika, whose words epitomize the life and legacy of Professor Sarat Mahanta. Manuhe, manuhor babe, joriye okunu nababe, tebe ku kiu, manuho buli kobo, manuhe, manuho babe. The English translation of it is that if a human does not feel for another human, then why should they be called human at all? To be human is to live for fellow humans. And that was the life and legacy of Professor Mahanta. I also want to acknowledge the distinguished presence of judges of the Guwahati High Court, the former judges of Supreme Court of India, also the Honorable Chief Secretary of the State of Assam, the Director General of Police of the State of Assam, the Advocate General of the State of Assam, and other distinguished individuals who are present here. I also want to thank the host here at the Royal Global University, the Chancellor, as well as many other distinguished friends, as well as faculty members, students, and staff of Royal Global University, and ladies and gentlemen. This honor of delivering the Professor Mahanta lecture gave me an opportunity to think about what I wanted to speak. Much has been talked and discussed about the idea of India celebrating its 100th anniversary in 2047. As we prepare for that 100th anniversary, it is important for us to think about our past. What defined our past? What are the journeys that we had over the last 80 years that brought us to where we are? And how the next 20 years will shape us to reach a very important milestone in the history of India, which is 2047. So I intend to give those 20 years of each phase of India's journey and give some snapshots connecting the theme that I intend to share with you, which is building India's future through education, justice, and technology. India's journey to 100 years of independence is not merely a story of political freedom. It is the evolution of one of the world's oldest continuous civilization into a modern democratic republic. This transformation spans three defining arcs: a deep-rooted civilizational foundation, a period of colonial disruption, and the birth of a constitutional democracy. India did not begin in 1947. It was reborn. The Republic inherited both the strength of its ancient tradition and the scars of colonial restructuring. Understanding India at 100 requires recognizing how these layers interact, how civilizational wisdom, institutional rebuilding, and technological advancement together shape the union's and the nation's trajectory. Can we get the clicker? It's working now? Right. So I intend to talk about this 100-year journey through three critical areas which I believe are going to shape India's future: education, justice, and technology. Let me begin with education. India has long been recognized as one of the world's oldest knowledge civilizations, where education was not limited to literacy or employment, but extended to intellectual, ethical, and spiritual development. For centuries, India cultivated a culture where learning was deeply respected and widely pursued. Knowledge was seen as a means of achieving both personal enlightenment and societal harmony. The great global centers included the Nalanda University, Takshashila, Vallabhi, and Vikramshila. Nalanda stood as one of the earliest and most advanced residential universities in the world. It symbolized organized higher education at scale. With approximately 10,000 students and around 2,000 scholars, Nalanda demonstrated both scale and academic excellence. Its international student base came from China, Korea, Tibet, and many other countries, which highlighted India's early global educational influence and intellectual openness. Takshashila functioned as a pioneering center of higher learning, where students from different regions studied diverse disciplines under renowned scholars. Vikramshila and Vallabhi were institutions which further strengthened India's academic ecosystem, specializing in advanced philosophical, administrative, and religious studies. Quite remarkably, the curriculum had very many aspects that we today take it for granted. Philosophy helped shape ethical and critical reasoning. Governance prepared administrators and policymakers. Medicine contributed to healthcare systems. Astronomy advanced scientific understanding. And linguistics refined communication and preservation of knowledge. This reflects an education system that integrated multiple domains rather than isolating them. The Gurukul system emphasized character formation alongside intellectual growth, ethical leadership grounded in values, and holistic development through close mentorship. Students lived with their teachers, learning not just subjects, but ways of life. The knowledge ecosystem had three critical aspects: the oral transmission for continuity and accessibility, written documentation for preservation and complexity, and interdisciplinary learning connecting different fields. a strong linkage between knowledge and societal purpose was deeply established. Knowledge was never isolated, it was functional, ethical, and socially embedded. India's civilizational strength lay not just in institutions, but in a living ecosystem of knowledge. Education was not about credentials, it was about creating individuals aligned with society, ethics, and nature. Let me move to the second aspect of justice, literally from dharma to rule of law. India's concept of justice evolved from the idea of dharma, which represented moral, ethical, and social order rather than merely legal rules. Justice rooted in dharma, moral, ethical, and societal order. Dharma guided individual and societal behavior, ensuring balance, fairness, and responsibility beyond formal enforcement mechanisms. Let me share a very interesting story from that time. A cow once rang the king's royal bell of justice after the prince accidentally ran over and killed the cow's calf with his chariot. Upholding absolute fairness, the king ordered the same fate for his son. The gods, moved by his fairness and sacrifice, restored both the prince and the calf to life. This is a story of a Chola king who is remembered as a powerful symbol of impartial justice, showing that true rulers must uphold dharma, the concept of righteousness, without favoritism, even toward their own family. There was also community-based justice. The Panchayati Raj systems enabled decentralized dispute resolution, making justice accessible and culturally relevant. Justice seen as accessible to common people, ethical in its foundation, and integrated with social norms and community life. Justice was not distant or procedural, it was part of everyday life. Justice in India was never merely legal, it was moral, social, and deeply human. It was internalized and it was not imposed. Let me move to the third aspect, which is about technology. Science and technology in ancient India was deeply flourishing. India's scientific achievements demonstrate that inquiry and innovation were deeply embedded in our civilization. Mathematics, zero, and the decimal system. The conceptualization of zero and the decimal system transformed mathematics globally, forming the basis of modern science and computing. Astronomy and Aryabhata are no less. Aryabhata's work on planetary motion and calculations marked significant advancements in astronomical science. Medicine, Ayurveda, including Sushita's surgical practices. Ayurveda emphasized holistic health, while Sushita pioneered surgical techniques reflecting sophisticated medical knowledge. In fact, the concept of metallurgy is a good example in the form of the Iron Pillar of Delhi. The Iron Pillar showcases advanced metallurgical techniques, particularly its resistance to corrosion over centuries. Science in India was not separate from life. It was embedded in civilization. It combined curiosity with application, theory with practice. The colonial disruption resulted in almost 200 years of colonialism, 1757 to 1947. Colonial rule fundamentally altered India's economic, educational, and institutional structures. India's share of global GDP declined dramatically from approximately 24% in 1700 to around 3 to 4% by 1947. Traditional industries collapsed, weakening indigenous economic systems. Indigenous education systems were also disrupted and marginalized. The focus shifted from knowledge creation to clerical training. English-based administrative education almost exclusively replaced indigenous systems, creating a narrow skill base. The codified legal system was introduced, bringing structure but also limitations. Different forms of discrimination persisted, access to justice remained unequal. The literacy levels were extremely low, about 16% in 1941 and around 18% in 1951. This reflected the massive educational deficit inherited at independence itself. Colonialism disrupted India's economic, intellectual, and institutional fabric, yet it also unintentionally ignited a modern sense of consciousness of rights, equality, and justice. The evolution of the freedom movement was part of that journey. You may see the picture of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar handing over the copy of our constitution to Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who was the president of the Constituent Assembly. So let me quickly move into the first, these are the early institutions as well. All right, let me quickly move into what I really wanted to talk about, which is the years, the first 2 decades, which is phase 1, nation building, 1947 to 1966. The Constitution of India marked a defining moment, laying the foundations of modern democratic republic. Constitution of India was one of the longest written constitutions. It reflects the complexity and diversity of India, addressing multiple dimensions of governance and rights. Just imagine, in December 1946, the Constituent Assembly was constituted and they began the work. That was a time when there were remarkable violations of rights happening due to violence, and the partition was also emerging. During that time, these extraordinary individuals, almost 300 members of the Constituent Assembly, were writing a constitution, was building the future of India. They were deeply conscious of the 200 years of colonialism, but they were also looking at a future. That India was also suffering with widespread inequalities, and they were building a future by the constitutional foundations and creating a new republic. The key principles that were infused into the constitution include social, economic, and political justice, the concepts of liberty, equality, dignity, and fraternity. These principles aim to transform society and not just govern it. Another remarkable aspect of that journey was the introduction of universal adult franchise, which was introduced from day one, a bold democratic experiment. The Constitution blended global ideas, British parliamentary system, American fundamental rights, and Irish directive principles. The transformative vision of social justice through reservations, economic justice through land reforms, and promotion of scientific temper, all of them were introduced. The Constitution is India's greatest act of imagination. It compresses centuries of democratic evolution into a single founding document. Let me talk quickly about education during that time, the 20 years, 1947 to 1966. Literacy increased from 18% to around 28%. Universities expanded from 20 to over 70. At the dawn of Indian independence, there were approximately 20 universities. Institutions such as IITs, AIIMS, and the UGC were established. The Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru, envisioned by Jamsetji Tata, with support from the Government of India and the Maharaja of Mysore to advance scientific research. Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai, founded by Omi Baba with backing from the Tata Trust to lead advanced research in fundamental sciences. The focus was on building scientific manpower and institutional capacity. Justice was also an important part of that time. The Supreme Court was established in 1950. Early constitutional cases defined the balance between parliament and judiciary. Technology was also an important part of the early journey. Institutions such as the Defense Research Development Organization and the Atomic Energy Commission were established. Infrastructure projects such as Bakra Nangal Dam and the steel plants symbolize development. You see a beautiful picture of that project itself. India chose to invest in institutions before outcomes, a long-term civilizational investment. That's on the inauguration of the Bakra Nangal project itself. Let me quickly move to the phase 2, which is 1967 to 1986. The focus was on inclusion and equity. Here we are recognizing the role of courts in a significant manner. These are the pictures of 2 distinguished judges, Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer and Justice P.N. Bhagwati of the Supreme Court. There's another beautiful picture of Dr. M.S. Swaminathan as a part of our evolution in the form of Green Revolution. So here on education, the National Policy on Education 1968 guided reforms. Literacy rose approximately 43%, focus expanded into rural areas, and gender inclusion. As far as justice is concerned, the public interest litigation emerged, making justice accessible. One of the provisions of our Constitution, Article 21, was expanded to include broader rights. Technology also began to take shape. The Green Revolution ensured somewhat forced, but a very valuable reliance as far as food self-sufficiency is concerned. The White Revolution made India the largest milk producer. India transitioned from scarcity to self-confidence, a turning point in national psychology as well. Now we move to the phase 3 of it. Oh, let me show you a very important picture here. Now this is of course a picture where we have Rakesh Sharma landing in space, and he was asked by the then Prime Minister, how was India looking from the space, and he replied, which became a legendary observation, Sare Jahan se acha, and that was all part of those 2 decades. Let me move to the third phase, which I think is a very critical phase, which is 1987 to 2006, where the focus was on liberalization and global integration. This is a very famous picture of the then finance minister essentially presenting the union budget. Another picture from the campus of Infosys, where the IT revolution began in some form. We also have the telecom revolution beginning too. And then another extraordinary picture of our Prime Minister Vajpayee as a part of the Pokhran test as well. So these 2 decades were so critical for laying the foundations of India's future. Education became a very critical part of it. There were expansion of private education, increasing capacity, technical workforce grew significantly. India emerged as a global talent hub. These early aspects of investment in education, we are seeing the benefit today, especially in the field of information technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, and machine learning. As far as justice is concerned, regulatory institutions like SEBI were established, rights discourse expanded in a liberalizing economy. As far as technology is concerned, economic reforms of 1991 reshaped the economy. IT and telecom revolutions accelerated growth. IT contributed around 5 to 6% of GDP by the early 2000s, with software exports rising rapidly. India discovered its greatest asset, human capital. Knowledge became the new currency of growth. Let me move to the next phase 4, which is this year happens to be, in my view, the last year of this 4th phase, which is 2007 to 2026, the digital transformation. Extraordinary things have happened in the last 2 decades. Every aspect of these developments, including the announcement of the National Education Policy by the Government of India, the creation of Aadhaar cards, the leadership in UPI, all these things were part of these last 2 decades. So, what happened in the last 2 decades as far as education, justice, and technology? The Right to Education Act ensured access. For the first time, we recognized that we need to democratize access to education. We need to ensure that those people who are underprivileged, who simply did not have opportunities to pursue education, were given an opportunity. It was no longer a charitable endeavor. It was no longer an aspirational endeavor. It became the right of every individual to seek opportunities to education, and that's where the right to education empowered ordinary Indians. The National Education Policy 2020 reimagined the future of education. It created new opportunities for growth and development. It recognized that the future of India is deeply dependent upon education. It proposed ideas of investment in education. It also attempted to break the shackles of private versus public in the field of higher education. It also created opportunities for imaginative regulation so that we can empower institutions for achieving their fullest potential. India has now more than 1,000 universities, nearly 50,000 colleges, 45 million students in our higher education sector, and all of this is contributing to our future indeed. Literacy rose from 63% in 2006 to more than 80% by 23-24. As far as justice is concerned, the last 2 decades were also important. The e-courts mission improved efficiency, the right to privacy and other important judgments strengthened the fundamental rights discourse, and the legal technology began to transform access. Although we still have a long way to go, with almost 50 million cases pending in Indian courts, access to justice is still a work in progress, and I'll come back to it when we talk about the next 20 years. Technology became the most significant achievement of India in the last 2 decades. The digital public infrastructure became the most centrifugal force for transforming India. Aadhaar today covers nearly 1.4 billion people, 1.3 to 1.4 billion people. UPI has become a world's leading real-time payment system. As far as the startup ecosystem, which the Honorable Governor spoke about, India has more than 100 unicorns, ranking among the top 3 globally. The space achievements are quite extraordinary, and that's why this picture is so important, where the Honorable Prime Minister of India essentially visited ISRO and encouraged the rocket women of India. As far as space achievements are concerned, the last 2 decades is quite significant. Chandrayaan 1 in 2008 confirmed the presence of water molecules on the moon, a breakthrough in lunar science. Mars Orbiter mission 2013-14 made India the first country to reach Mars orbit on its maiden attempt. Chandrayaan 3 2023 marked a major milestone with a successful soft landing near the moon's south pole. Ladies and gentlemen, I must confess that this is a very significant achievement, not only because of the scientific advancement here. India spent approximately $75 million each for successful Mars and Moon mission. Indian scientists were able to do those missions for $75 million each of those missions. Hollywood spends approximately $100 million to make movies such as Interstellar and Martian. For $100 million, Americans make a movie, and India has been able to actually send successful missions to Mars and Moon. Our science and technology achievements is not just about our own achievements, it's about democratizing science, it's about creating access to technology, it's about ensuring that the global south also has access to technology, and that is why today we are leaders in frugal innovation, and space research is one such example. India has created a new development paradigm, technology as a public good delivered at scale with inclusion and affordability. Of course, we also saw India's leadership in G20 as well, bringing together so many leaders, heads of states and heads of government, for an extraordinary conversation and to be able to build consensus on some of the most difficult issues of our time. All this was part of the last 2 decades. All right, let me quickly move to the future, which is the next 2 decades. On education, I believe that the future is going to be driven by artificial intelligence, but converting that into personalized learning. I believe that the next 2 decades will also ensure that we are going to use technology as a way of empowering learning. I also feel that the next 2 decades will also expect India to provide global leadership in research. The Global AI Summit that was recently held is an example of India's potential. We also hope to see expansion institutional thought. In many ways, the fact that we have an extraordinary opportunity to address the challenges of justice system using technology as a framework for it, we should use it. Already I see hope through that process. Leadership in AI, quantum computing, and the space economy, all of this is going to be part of the future. I also feel that the strong focus on climate and sustainability solutions will also become part of the next 2 decades for India to achieve our aspiration at 100. India's future lies in balancing scale with ethics, technology with justice, and growth with sustainability. So, in conclusion, at 100, we need to be conscious of 5 pillars. Democracy, evolving from the largest to the most participatory one. Demography, a young workforce driving innovation. At the dawn of Indian independence, our life expectancy was 32. Today it is 72. And it is estimated that, United Nations estimated that in the next 2 decades it will become 82. When essentially means that when most of the Western world will become older, when most parts of Eastern world, including China and Japan, will become older, India will be younger and will be younger for a longer time. Young Indians, I believe, will be shaping the future of India and the future of the world. The third aspect is about development and inclusive growth model, where we need to take India together, Bharat together. India and Bharat need to be taken together, and that's part of the inclusive growth development model. Fourth aspect of these 5 pillars are digital India, technology as an equalizer, as a democratizing force, as an opportunity for emancipating and empowering ordinary Indians. And the fifth is about a dharma-based governance where ethical foundations of progress are part of an attempt to build a rule of law society which promotes access to justice. India's global role, a leading voice at the global south, a model of inclusive digital development, a bridge between tradition and modernity. So, India's journey is layered, not linear. A civilization, colonialization, constitution, and transformation. Education gave India its mind, justice gave India its soul, technology gave India its momentum. India at 100 will not simply be a developed nation. It will have a civilizational influence that has harmonized knowledge, justice, and technology to create a model of progress that the world can trust, learn from, and aspire to. Thank you very much, and it's an honor and a pleasure to deliver the Sarat Mahanta Memorial Lecture.
Thank you, Professor Raj, for a truly fascinating memorial lecture and underscoring that India at 100 must emerge as a global model where knowledge, justice, and technological innovation together shape inclusive and ethical progress. We would like to have a brief Q&A session. We would request you to please raise your hand and a mic would reach you, and Professor Raj can respond to any question that you may have. Do I see any hands? If you have a question, you can raise your hand. There, I can't see.
So since the Honorable Governor used to be a teacher before, he will appreciate this in a classroom. If people don't ask questions in a classroom, then as we do in our university, we ask the question to the student itself. So that's the next model where I can ask one of you to actually ask a question, pushing you, nudging you there.
Good evening.
Please.
I'm Madhusmita Adhyapak here. Have been associated with students and teaching. So loved listening to you about the past, present, and the future of India. So having been worked in this area of education and seeing what's going on, especially in terms of AI, if somebody asks me today, what's the future, especially when it comes to selecting a career in terms of education, I feel at loss because I really don't know how to guide someone today which course to select and how to go about it. Because I myself is unsure. So how do you address this situation today? Considering AI, putting it in the forefront of all the areas we have been dealing today.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I think it is fair to be concerned about the future. If you look at every major technological evolution that has happened in the last maybe more than 100 years, every time that innovation came about, there was skepticism, there was widespread concern, and all of that, and we have seen that enough in India itself. So I, for one, don't believe that these new technological developments, including artificial intelligence, is going to adversely impact any country. Of course, there is one important proviso that it should also put us with a responsibility of educating our people. We need to, so when I was preparing for this lecture, I was thinking about the fact that if I were to identify 3 major things that we need to recognize as the most important aspects of the future of India and how our past was also defined by that, I brought education as the first. And I didn't do this not because I'm an educationist, but I had recognized the fact that if you look at any developed country in the world, including the new countries which have become more developed when they started around the same time with us, China for example, their development potential has been possible because of the significant investments continuously committed towards education. Of course, I once again want to reiterate that the national education policy has provided a platform for us to commit ourselves to that idea, that vision. We also need to ask a question, how much our educational systems are preparing our students for that future? To what extent we are infusing the development of a critical mind, an analytical mind that is able to create what machines and artificial intelligence cannot do. Are we in a position to develop that independent mind among our students? And that is an important question we need to address. We also need to invest in excellence. I think the last 80 years, we spent far too much time, and that was important, to expand the higher education system where more and more people are able to come into the system. But the reality is, when you look at the outcomes and the jobs available for the youth, there are huge challenges as well. And that is connected to the economic growth and development which can create jobs, but we should also prepare our young people to become entrepreneurs, to be able to become entrepreneurs so that they can create opportunities as well. We also need to move beyond many traditional programs that have been thought about in the past, where the only way to educational success is by doing those programs. There are numerous areas which have come about. And the last thing I will say is that our education system should be mindful of the fact that we are preparing young people today for jobs that don't exist today, but they will develop in the future. Think about the challenge for us as educators, be it school teachers, college teachers, university teachers. In the past, we were preparing for medicine so that there are doctors there. We are preparing for people to become engineers because we know engineers are there. But today, the rapid speed in which technology is evolving, we are indeed preparing young people for a future where those jobs don't exist now, but they will emerge maybe in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 or more. So if that is the goal, then the existing form of education needs to be reimagined, and the NEP has provided a foundation for that as well.
There is a question here.
I am Lieutenant General Kalita, retired from the Army. My basic question about education system is, how do you transform from a job creation oriented education to inquisitive learning, which would be the need of the hour for the future?
So thank you so much for that question. I think it is only fair to say that much of our education, especially in schools, to some extent colleges, have also created lesser learning opportunities and more certifications and the emphasis on rote learning too. I mentioned about NEP, but one of the major challenges that we have faced in the last maybe 75 years is that we have not developed opportunities for inquisitive learning, as you said. Much of what has happened is about the received wisdom from the teacher, who is the center for the entire learning enterprise. I do believe that our classrooms should become spaces of learning where we need to develop a thinking mind, a questioning mind, a challenging mind. That requires both changes in the pedagogy, but also in the curriculum, in the courses, and indeed the programs that we offer when it comes to our students. I strongly believe that we need to become more and more interdisciplinary. We need to break the shackles of learning, where most of us have got educated through a very stratified learning system where everybody has to make the choice of single discipline. All of this has actually come about through the NEP. But the question is, do we have the resources? Do we have the capacity? Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the executing ability to fulfill the NEP? There we have a lot of work to do. Frankly speaking, we also need more resources. We have not yet fulfilled NEP's own aspiration to have 6% GDP investment in education. That also we need to do. So I am confident about the fact that we have the potential, but honestly, if we are able to only commit ourselves to fulfilling these goals and aspirations in the way I suggested or in any other form, I'm afraid that the aspiration at 100 might fall short. And that's exactly what we want to avoid doing.
Good evening, Professor. My name is Dr. Partha Pratim Das. I have a small question for you, sir. You have given us a brief history of the education in India in last 80 years, and you have also proposed the future. So which model of education do you propagate for future? We have two models. One, our government education system, where we have many schools, colleges, universities. Infrastructure is crumbling there. Teachers are there, well paid, but the courses that they offer are very rigid, as you have just suggested. We need flexibility. On the other hand, we have model of private education, where we have universities like the one you have represented before, and the one where we are standing now, where there are good quality of infrastructure, teachers are there, flexibility of courses are there, but course fees are very high. In fact, in this hall, probably most of us sitting here we have studied in government institutions, but I'm sure none of our children or none of our grandchildren are currently going to any of the government institutions. The gap has widened. So the model which you as an educationist would like to suggest for the government or us to follow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that question. I have never believed in one-size-fits-all policy. I don't think a country like India can afford to only promote public education or only promote private education, but we should also challenge the way we have promoted both of them. You quite rightly mentioned about the fact that many aspects of public education has crumbled, but we still have some of the most outstanding institutions in the public sector, especially IITs and IIMs are a good example, but also in the schools, the Kendriya Vidyalayas and other such institutions. So in some ways, that doesn't mean that all of public sector has gone wrong, but we need to see what we can do to improve many of them, and especially the state universities across India, but also the colleges as well. The private education is a very good problem you mentioned. I am very, very convinced about the fact, and from day one I have always maintained, I've written about it and publicly spoken about it, that we cannot afford to have for-profit education in India. All of education ought to be not-for-profit. The privatization of Indian higher education in the 80s and the 90s and all the way even now, a lot of it unfortunately has been very for-profit, but most unfortunately dubious endeavors in the higher education as well as in the other education sector. We really need to have philanthropists, enlightened philanthropists such as my own benefactor Naveen Jindal or Royal Global University's Chancellor. We need individuals who are not looking at education as a business but an opportunity to change society. And one of the things people don't know is that, at least in India, they don't appreciate enough, is that Harvard University is a private university, but it's a not-for-profit institution. Yale, Stanford, MIT, Caltech, these are all private universities. And Oxford and Cambridge and University of California and many others are public universities. So the character of the university being public or private should not determine whether they should be promoting excellence or not. Excellence is a phenomenon that we need to be committing ourselves regardless of its public or private character. Lastly, I will say that the tragedy that we have faced over the last several decades is that the mediocrity and institutionalization of mediocrity across our public and private institutions have led to a situation where a large number of educated youth simply do not have jobs, not so much only because of the fact that there are not enough jobs, the quality of education itself has been questioned. And hence, it's important for us to invest not only in quantity, but in quality. Expansion is critical, but expansion with excellence is equally important. And that's why, as you look at the future, and given our economic constraints, as I mentioned to you about the GDP investment in education, we need both the public and the private education traveling together for achieving the fullest potential. We need to create more and more enlightened philanthropists and benefactors to contribute to scholarship and empowering students so that they can afford a slightly higher fee when it comes to private education, but a lower fee when it comes to public education, because public education is funded by taxpayers as opposed to private education. Another aspect which I think is important is that the great private universities in the United States have grown through a significant incentive structure created through tax incentives for benefactors as well as philanthropists to emerge. As we look at the future, I believe there are a lot more rich people in India who are ready and willing to make a contribution to education, but you also need to create an enabling environment for such people to be investing in education, not for profit, but to be interested in governance and to be able to contribute towards betterment of India's future.
Thank you. There was a hand there at the back. Yes, please. Can we have a mic to the lady? There, in the middle row. So once the first question was asked, we have now quite a few coming up.
Good
Please.
evening, sir. I have a question. I am an ISER Pune graduate, and I have a question regarding still a higher number of people are pursuing education, higher education abroad. So what modification can be done in our education system, and how long will it take to reach our Indian education system to such a level and reach its most potential?
Yeah, you'll be very surprised that out of the 46 million students who are studying in India, in the Indian higher education sector, less than 1 million students go abroad. Going abroad with or without scholarship is still a small number of Indian students go abroad. So I don't believe that, we need to be worried about Indian students going abroad. But what we need to be worried about, and I think that's a very important point, is that first, to what extent we can improve the quality of education so that the students who study in India are given equal opportunities in terms of quality and excellence, just as the institutions that are abroad. So in many ways, what we don't want is more privileged people end up going abroad for better education, and those of us who are in India are receiving mediocre or less, in terms of quality, less relevant education. We need to address that. The second, and in my view, a more serious issue which I think is important, is that I spent a decade abroad, and I used to work in New York and Hong Kong and Japan and many years, but I wanted to come back to India to be part of India's journey, and I wanted to be part of an effort to build a university, and that's why I returned to India. But I am worried about the fact that when we want to inspire today's youth who go abroad for higher education, just like me and even Upasana and others, what do we have in India to return back to India? What is it that India can provide in terms of opportunities, in terms of aspirations, in terms of excellence, in terms of engagement, in terms of impact, that we can actually attract some of the most finest individuals who did that over 100 years ago? We had, people like Homi Bhabha and Vikram Sarabhai and so many others who took a decision over 100 years ago, who returned from Cambridge and other top universities, came to India and laid the foundations of Indian science. There were many others, including Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and many, many others who had opportunities to go abroad but chose to be in India. So an important challenge that is confronting us is that, and that's not only for education, but also all of us, including public policy and government and corporations and business enterprises, all of us, is that what is it that India can offer, can do to be able to create opportunities for these outstanding young people who are out there abroad in various parts of the world, some of whom, not all, some of whom actually want to come back to India. And so that is the question that we need to address, because there are a lot of inherent, let's say, limitations and inefficiencies within the system that discourages people to come back to India. And we need to address. We are very fortunate that as a university, we took that call long ago. We have more than 150 faculty members, some of whom are Indians who have returned. But if I look at the 1,000 plus faculty members we have, more than half of them had studied abroad and have returned to India. They had opportunities to stay abroad, they have come back to India. So we need to take this challenge more seriously, because if we want to have the part of the mission, we need to create those opportunities. We need to appeal not only to their patriotism, which I think is important, but we also need to appeal to the opportunities and the ecosystem that we have for them to make a contribution and to have an impact in India.
Thank you. I understand that there are more questions, but we have arrived towards the concluding part of today's event. Thank you, Professor Rajkumar, for your address, and a big round of applause. We are deeply grateful to the Honorable Governor of Assam, Srijut Lakshman Prasad Acharya Mohoday, for gracing this occasion with his esteemed presence and delivering the inaugural address. Your kind presence, your insightful address, and most significantly, your continued guidance, warmth, and good wishes have been a source of motivation to all of us. Thank you. Our heartfelt gratitude to you. Our heartfelt gratitude to Professor Dr. C. Rajkumar for graciously accepting our invitation and delivering a truly remarkable, thought-provoking, and inspiring memorial lecture. Our gratitude to Honorable Mr. Justice Michael D. Wilson for his special remarks and for making the journey all the way to the northeast of India for the first time to be part of this memorial lecture. We are deeply grateful to all distinguished guests and dignitaries. Your presence made this evening a truly memorable one. We truly understand that it's a terrible weather today. It's pouring outside. I believe there is water logging and many of want to go home. So we are very, very grateful that you took time out and graced this occasion with your presence. Without you, the Professor Sarat Mahanta Memorial Lecture and all the work that we are trying to do to Professor Sarat Mahanta Foundation would have no meaning. So we are deeply, deeply grateful that you're part of this journey with us. Thank you, and now may I request all of you to rise for the national song and the national anthem.
Just
Thank you. Good evening. And please do join us for light refreshments outside. Thank you very much.